don't have to explain yourself to anybody else. You do not have to use anybody else's labels. You are you with a name you were given, and that is the entire identity. And you get to decide what you want. And I get into a lot of debates with my bestie on this. It's like, people don't know what they want. I said, I don't agree with that. I think you don't slow down enough to ask yourself that, because the moment you have awareness, you're going to have to move.
Introducing The Vixen Voice, a podcast for ambitious women entrepreneurs ready to move into their feminine essence, live their truth, and unlock their full potential. I'm your host, April Roberts, and each week I'll be interviewing inspiring women who decided to take a leap of faith to pursue their dream. Women who believe that they were born for something bigger. Hey there, just popping in quickly. It's April Roberts, and I wanted to thank you for being a loyal listener of The Vixen Voice. It means so much to me. And because of that, we're going to be popping in these little announcements because I want you to be the first to know what's going on at the Vixen Gathering. So if you haven't done so yet, click the link below and check out the Vixen Founders Collective. The members who are already in are raving, and we would love to have you join us in the ultimate business consulting, networking, and personal growth community for Gen X female founders. See you there. Hi, and welcome back to another episode of The Vixen Voice. I'm super excited to be chatting with our guest today and all of you. I know that we run 2 episodes every week, but I actually haven't recorded in about a month, so I've missed you all. So I'm so excited. I have a phenomenal guest today for my first show back at it. Christine Campbell Rapin is an energetic, tell it like it is business advisor, mentor, consultant, speaker, and 3-time international best-selling author. So we've been chatting behind stage before getting started, and I'm so excited for this conversation because you can probably tell from her bio, tell it like it is, that we are very aligned. So we are going to have an amazing conversation. I know we're going into what for many people might be the slow time of the year, as this is November whenever you're listening. And so we're going to kind of dive into that today. But Christine, I want to stop and welcome you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
And the fun part is Christine's joining us from Canada. So I always love when we have international guests. So fun.
That's right. I'm bringing you a little bit of winter.
Yeah, winter disappeared here in Nashville. We had it for like a week, and now it's like 70 something and sunny, which is okay nice with me for now.
Me too. I'll be in your backyard.
I know. I love it. So, Christine, let's dive in. You know, I always like to say I work with a lot of female entrepreneurs. I believe you do too. And one thing I love about working with women is we are very multifaceted creatures, right? Which I always like to say our superpower can also be our kryptonite. And so, so we have to balance that. But I'd love to hear, I mean, you've had a fascinating career. You do so many things. You were just sharing with me the amazing events you do and talking about sustaining yourself for 9 hours. I totally get that. But I'd love to hear what stands out in your mind as a pivotal moment in your life that really helped create this amazing woman that we're talking to today.
Oh, there have been so many. I'll talk about the one that truly really made me decide it was time to start moving myself. I had a really great corporate career, lots of highlights in it, and I was really defined by that job, whatever it was. Lots of different versions, lots of different storylines in it, but I was very much tied to what I was doing in the world of corporate as an identity until the identity was no longer mine. And sometimes that happened without my anticipation. And about 10 years ago, I was a top performer, thought I had the world by the tail, was supporting small businesses, and I was 1,400 kilometers away from home. And I imagined my evening like any other career warrior who travels for business. Get back to the hotel, get on some comfy clothes, go to the hotel lounge, have dinner and a glass of wine, and check my emails. That was my exotic plan for the evening until I walked into the hotel lobby and saw HR and my boss in the lounge and thought, there's no chance that's accidental. Oh my God, I'm about to be fired. And in 20 minutes or less, they detonated my life. And they got on a plane and flew home. And I didn't get the same grace. I actually didn't fly home till the next day, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And so I spent 17 hours in a hotel far from home, mostly truly crying on the bathroom floor, wondering what the hell had just happened. Having to make the phone call to my then fiance to say that dream house we want to buy, off the table. That trip to London, England, where we're taking 30 of my top performing customers, off the table. I need you to tell these new bonus kids I was soon to be having in my life as a female role model, I'm about to fall apart rather epically. And that was a pivotal moment for me because I was no longer defined by something that I thought was a given. And it took me a lot of time to get back up off the floor, mentally, with my confidence. And it started when a former teammate of mine phoned me about maybe 8 weeks after that moment and said, your job was never filled and is vacant and I would like it. Would you help me get it? And I thought, wow, I can't believe I'm having this conversation. But I admired her tenacity to go after what she wanted. And I had to spend a lot of time in my own headspace saying, who do I want to be? The person that was no longer valued in an organization where I had done the job they'd hired me for, and now it was a new season and I wasn't the best leader, or the kind of leader she thought I was that would help her get the job even in my own shitstorm, pardon the language. And I got to decide in that moment, who do I want to be? And that pivotal question of who do I want to be in this moment has defined my journey today, and always is the hardest, most honest, most vulnerable time, and it's one I revisit frequently because it is the only thing I control. How do I show up? Who do I want to show up as today? And that is an intentional choice.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. I have to tell you, that is probably the worst layoff story I've ever heard in my life. The fact that they actually
Right?
flew out to fire you on location is absolutely
And didn't buy me a
insane.
ticket to go home that night. Like, whatever,
That's
spend the $200,
crazy.
get a change fare, put a new ticket, say, this is kind of suck. Why don't you go home? And instead they're like, don't worry, we'll buy your dinner, but we're going to take your credit card away. So use your own card. I was like, sure.
Oh my
It gets worse.
It's too much. It's too much. But it's interesting, and it might have been a blessing that you were stuck in that hotel room, because who knows, if you had gotten on a plane and gone home, like, you might have, I don't know, you could have been in denial of the situation. Something else could have happened. I find, sometimes when we're left alone with ourselves, it's meant for a reason.
There is a moment of, and there are many moments, a real recognition that this is my life. And I will tell you, every big moment in my journey, and at that time I swore to myself, I will never put myself at risk this way. It is time to start building something, was the mental seed that got planted when I was lying on the bathroom floor. I truthfully don't like to ever stay at that hotel ever now. I go back to that city a lot, but never do I never choose to stay there because it's like the scene of the crime. But I did have to really start to go, this is my life, what do I want to make of it? And every business owner I know, especially the women, have a moment that is pivotal, and it's usually around, wow, I've got to do this for me. There's a lot of women who get caught into I'm doing it for my kids, I'm doing it for my parents, I'm doing it for my partner, I'm doing it for whatever. It's usually always so socially acceptable to tell that story. And they're on the journey with you, but truly you don't do anything for them. It really comes down to, you hustle for you. You do it because it's part of you. You do it for your own ability to breathe. And there have been many moments in my life where that's where it's so crystal clear. It's, wow, this is my life. What do I want to make of it?
Yeah, I thought about that when we're talking about, you lost your identity, right? Like, your job was your identity. And I think we women tend to wear our roles as our identity, right? I'm a mother, I'm a wife, I'm this career. whatever. I'm a daughter. For me, yes, the biggest role that I had to shed was being the good daughter, right? Or the oldest child. I remember when I was 30 something and my sister and I were in a serious argument about something. And my mom was like, well, you're the big sister, be the bigger person. I was like, Mom, we're both 30 something years old. I don't have to be like, I have to be the bigger
Nobody gets a
person
free
because
pass at this stage. We're adulting.
right, because that's my value, right? But not because I'm the big sister. So it's so funny, like how deep into our life that really affects us. And thank you for bringing that up. That's why I love, I struggle with the language, so maybe you can give me guidance while we're here, the messaging. But I tend to work with women, I'd say from mid to upper 30s on, and it's because they've had these experiences in their lives, right? And we get to a place in our lives where we're seeking more. I mean, I had a financial firm that was doing amazingly well, and I thought I'd take care of my clients the rest of my life. Like that was really my vision. And I started getting a whispering and then a vision, and it grew and grew and grew. Like, my boss upstairs wanted me to make impact in a different way. And, to shed all that responsibility is really something that no one talks about when that responsibility is removed from you, right? Because we don't realize how we're carrying it. I was just talking to a friend of mine yesterday. She went to Italy for 2 weeks, and it's the first time she's taken 2 full weeks off, no computer, nothing. And she's like, I didn't know what to do with myself. Like we came back a day early and my husband was like, thank God we didn't stay another day. Like, and she was like, you really don't know how to function. So I can't even imagine how you felt in that room that night. I mean, I think most of us have had a story similar to that, but nobody talks about that moment, right? Where suddenly it's just like the carpet's pulled out from under you. And sometimes like me, I sold my business, so I chose that, but it's still, you have to deal with it, whereas the choice was made for you, right?
Even when you choose it, nobody appreciates. Just because I chose it doesn't mean that there's not levels of grief. There's not levels of uncertainty. There's levels not of, oh my God, WTF, what's happening? And I think that's even sometimes harder because while I am a Canadian, I've lived all over the world, and a lot of people only see the glamour of the new storyline and said, yeah, I'm not an average girl, because there's no such thing. And yes, I've gotten on a plane to go live in countries that I've never visited, to live with strangers I've never met, and just done that more than once. And I think what's also true is nobody understands the mind trash that happens, but they also don't understand that it's a commitment to yourself that says, I can solve this. And in that moment, it's like, when I went through that pivotal moment, the biggest question was, how did I miss the signs? Because there must have been some. How could I be so blindsided? And that was real, honestly, shame and judging myself, because it's like, I must have not been paying attention. And that was a harder thing, because in my own conversation, because it was another woman that I had as a leader, I kept saying to her, how are we at this place when you did not have the conversations you should have had? And I had a hard time, and still to this day, I do not get a free pass for that for her. I said, you needed to have a conversation you didn't have, and we're here, and I'm blindsided. That is not on me. That's on you as a leader. And you didn't accidentally get on a plane and end up in my lobby here. And she's like, well, I'm like, no, you made a real intentional decision that you left me out of, and I deserve an explanation. Never got one because of the legal risk. But it didn't change the fact that I had to stand there and say, who do I get to be now? And that is a hard burden, and we don't often talk about it. And when you choose it, you also have this moment of, doesn't mean it's effortless. And when it doesn't happen for you, there's a lot of rallying that you can spend time in, of saying it's not fair. And yet the bigger story is, it is what is, where do I go forward? And give yourself grace, because in that turmoil, success is shifting. What was success the day before and what success in those turmoil moments is so vastly different. I mean, I went through a period that, honestly, getting out of the house to go to Starbucks was like a very big adventure. And I probably was at 4 Starbucks a day in my career job that like the week before, because I was constantly with clients, constantly out doing things. And it was very hard to do that. And there was a moment when I looked at myself in the mirror and said, oh, you're not who you are capable of being. You've got to start picking yourself up. And I said, I made some commitments to myself. I went through an exercise where I kind of defined 10 questions, like, who do I want to be now? And it was really important that I dropped the title, dropped the salary, dropped those other things that were a big part of that identity, and said, it's not that I can't create that, I've already created that. But now what do I want to create? And I went through and I asked myself these 10 questions. To this day, any client that comes to work with me, it's the first thing I give them. Before we meet for the first time, I want you to ask these 10 questions. I want you to be thinking about sharing your vision of what you want your life to look like. What lifts you up? What are you doing? What are you not doing? What does it look like? So that you can start to see the vision, because I would always bet on a person, not your business dream. Because the business dream is going to iterate. It's going to shift. And I need you to tell me what you want. And sometimes, to your point, we don't spend enough time when we're in this constant hamster wheel of expectation, other people's roles that they've assigned for us, that we think we have to compartmentalize. I'm like, no, you don't.
Yeah.
You don't have to explain yourself to anybody else. You do not have to use anybody else's labels. You are you with a name you were given, and that is the entire identity. And you get to decide what you want. And I get into a lot of debates with my bestie on this. It's like, people don't know what they want. I said, I don't agree with that. I think you don't slow down enough to ask yourself that, because the moment you have awareness, you're going to have to move. And you don't want to move because it's more safe to stay in ignorance. But to your point, a higher power, something is giving you clues, whispering, pay attention. And at some point, if you are not, it totally upends your life at the most inconvenient time. Because they're like, you weren't paying attention. You needed this stepping stone, but this is a stepping stone. Don't stay there. You're like,
I call it the 2x4 to the forehead, which is why I figured out how to sell my business, because we won't get into it. But I moved to Italy. I married an Italian, and I had a 2x4 to the forehead moment in Italy, and I had to get myself home to the US. So I've had plenty of those at this point in life. So when the whispers started coming to make impact in a different way, I was like, okay, I'll figure this out. Just give me a moment.
And that's the commitment. That's the commitment you do get to make. And, nobody will you can lead you to be led to water, but you don't have, it's your decision to own that, which is, I can figure this out. Honestly, life gets so much less stressful, so much less artificial drama when you simply recognize, I can figure this out. I have options. I might not always love all the choices, but I can make an active decision. And, the phrase, it's like, life isn't happening to me. I'm an active participant in it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
Gosh, such a big question.
I love it. So many things you touched on that I'd love to talk about. So the one thing is, my next question was going to be, how did this experience lead to the work you're doing today? Or how does it, shape it? And you've kind of started to share that with your 10 questions that you put yourself through, and you put your clients through that, which I love, because you're coming from a place of deep empathy and compassion in that work, because you've been there, done that. Even though everyone's experience is different, you've had a parallel experience to them.
When that did happen, I started to make myself a comment, which is to myself, it is time to be open-minded to starting something of your own. And I knew from a young age I would be an entrepreneur, and I always say to people, if I just knew what I wanted to do, I would go do it, because I would get irritated with my inaction at some point. And I didn't know what it would look like, and I couldn't see it because I struggled to see my value after I'd had the rug pulled out under me. And that still has echoes 10 years later on occasion. And I feel like I'm just like returning to, oh, right, I was capable in the world of business, which is such a funny concept in my brain, but it is a real reality. And about 9 months after that moment, I'd gone back into corporate. I'd taken another job. I had someone reach out to me from my LinkedIn network that I had been a colleague of 10 years earlier when I lived in London, England. Not a social friend, so we're clear. Somebody I rubbed shoulders with in an environment in an office. And she said, 10 years ago, you left an impression that you would want to do something on your own. I'd like to have a conversation about that, because I have something that might interest you. And I was so surprised she would even remember my name. And then secondly, really surprised that really at 35, I left that impression. How fascinating, because I did not think it was really even on my radar at that time. And I was open-minded enough to have a conversation. I did not get out of bed on Wednesday to start a business. And by Friday, after she told me what she was doing and how it could be an opportunity and a vehicle to start to move, I could hear myself on Friday morning in my head saying, you haven't got time. You haven't got the money. This isn't the moment. And I could hear this. And all of a sudden I looked at myself in the same mirror when I had that moment when I got the phone call from Kim, who was like, could you help me get the job that you lost? I was like, I'm afraid to bet on myself because I can solve this. Nobody is going to tell me how to grow the business, but I can make this work if I commit to betting on myself. So in about a nanosecond, I sent a WhatsApp message because I was like, I don't want to be afraid of my own potential. I said yes, and then I came down to the kitchen. My then fiance was making coffee, turned on the kettle to make me a cup of tea, and I really just, it's so funny story looking back on it now. I said, like, hey babe, I've just started a business. He's like, yeah, I'm sorry, you did what? I saw you were brushing your teeth upstairs. Like, I don't understand. You never even told me you were thinking about building a business. What does this mean? We're about to be married. I'm like, yeah, got all that. What's the question? And he's like, we should have a conversation about big decisions like this before you do them. And I'm like, oh, well, single girl getting married at 40 for the first time. If there's a rule book about getting married, I should be given a copy, probably now. So I'm aware of what the requirements are. And I said to him, not at all meaning it disrespectfully, I said, it never occurred to me to ask you, to share it with you. It wasn't a decision you needed to be involved in. It was a decision about what did I need. And I took care of myself. And it was the truest words I ever said is, I need to do this for me. And on occasion, he's had to course correct me when I started to believe I was doing this for other people. He's like, no. We all support you. We also are behind you. We like who and what you are when you're stepping into your leadership. But you do not do this to lead for us. You do this as part of your DNA. It's part of your purpose. It's part of your way you give back. And he said, okay, what does this mean? I said, well, I'm going to commit 1 hour a day. Because I knew I could stay in discipline at 1 hour a day.
Yep.
And that meant, I said, the kids and you can watch Friends reruns, 2 of them, 2 episodes was an hour. And then you have the right to knock on the door and get me out of my office. But I'm going to start doing something. And it was through that first hour that the business community started to observe to me, I was more effective 1 hour a day than they were, and they were working at full time. And it led to invitations for coffee, glasses of wine. What the hell are you doing in 1 hour? And I was like, and I said this, it's like a t-shirt catchphrase, I treat my business like a business. And they're all like, yeah, I mean, I've heard that expression, but you seem to know what it means. Like, what the hell does it mean? Because I want that. And I said, well, business is really elegantly simple. I've helped more than 400 companies create $1 billion. Here's how you play the game. Choose your speed, commit to being in here, and build your 5 foundations. And they're all like, huh, I can see it now that you've described it. I can observe you doing it. I am excited to go apply this. And that's where they would leave the coffee shop or the wine bar and go, oh, I feel renewed. And I was like, great. And then inevitably a period of time would come along and another invitation for coffee or a glass of wine would come around and I'm like, what's happening? And they would tell their stories and I'm like, it's like watching you do the hokey pokey. Like, it's painful watching you fail. What's happening over there, my friend? And they're like, I can't apply this. And eventually it started to lead to people, could you help? And invitations to mentor. I'd like to pay for your time because I respect that you don't have a ton of it. Because I said my kids were in sport, teenagers, getting jobs. We traveled a lot for both our corporate jobs, my husband and I. And so we needed to have time together in order to make a really solid family life. And so being constantly working 24/7 was not going to support that. And I was not happy with what I saw in the business community in the coaching space. I thought a lot of people did not have the business background that they purported to have. They really had never been in the fires that true business will be in. And I did not like a lot of charlatans I observed. There's 3 things to do, there's only this, and if you just dance on TikTok and all that stuff that was going on pre-COVID and throughout COVID period of time. But I went to a mentor of mine who really had a passion for coaching, and he said, pay attention. Your experience in the world of business, creating so many different business types, money, and knowing how to create predictable success is what people are asking you to help them do. All the knives in your back, all the stories that brought you here, all of the reasons you were on the bathroom floor, you're in a unique position to mentor. And I would write you a $10,000 check. I'd also write you a $100,000 check. You know how to build a six-figure business. You know how to build a multi-million-dollar business. So pay attention and say yes. God's asked you to do this. And I'm just reaffirming what you already know. Time to take a pivot. And I also was open-minded and said, okay, I'm open-minded that this, for the right clients, for the right people, I can see where I can contribute. Because truthfully, I just didn't recognize the value I could bring. But I bumbled my way into my first client, actually in a podcast interview with somebody I know well in my network. She's like, no, I'm not asking background questions. I want to get out my credit card. And I'm like, oh, I leave the room. I said to my husband, I think I've just signed my first client. And it's a journey. And today that's how this story, back to where you asked me, the story of how did this shape me, it started me moving. I was paying attention. I was willing to bet on myself and trust that I could solve whatever problem I was facing. And that's what people hire me to do today. Build a business, solve the problems, create an engine, and build the business that they want. A way that is sustainable so that you can ride it. Because I don't believe the crap that's out there right now. The sky is falling. Business is so much harder. I'm like, business is evolving. Yes, that's not any different than 2008. It's not any different going to be in 10 years. Can you navigate a changing landscape? Can you bet on yourself? Can you solve that? That's a better question to be asking. Yeah. And if we build foundations, the answer is always a heck yes, I can.
Well, and there's so much opportunity in that moment, right? When everyone else thinks it's, I mean, I think back to 2020, that was when I was similar to you, the Vixen gathering I now have, that was like my night job, right? My day job was running a financial planning company and the securities business that supported it. So I was the face of the company, the CEO, and the chief compliance officer. And I had a team and my family in, and then I was, building this business at night. So I can totally relate to what you're sharing. But, when COVID happened and the markets crashed and we managed our clients' portfolios well, but I mean, it was still 8-9 hours a day telling them they're okay because they're listening to the news, not looking at their actual account and the plan we have together for them, right? And the news is telling them the sky is falling. And I'm like, have you looked? Like, this is your situation. And they'd be like, oh my gosh, seriously? And so that was my life. Like 6 days of the week, I would take Sunday off because I never worked Saturday before, but there was so much panic that I was like, I told my advisors, we have to talk to every client and let them know they're okay. And then I realized there's an opportunity because if you remember right before 2020, everything was becoming commoditized, right? Like no one had a CPA anymore. They had TurboTax. Algorithms were coming out in the financial world. So people were like, maybe I don't need a financial advisor. You can have LegalZoom to do your legal work. And I was like, I think people need to be seen and heard right now. And that's why we did that, like 6 days a week on the phone with every client. And then what happened? Oh, I have this money I didn't tell you about. Oh, my friend needs your help. And we doubled our business from April 2020 to January 2021, just because I was like, let's go be good people and take care of our clients, right? And so I think at those moments, it's like you said, like, who do I want to be and how do I want to show up? And, my team and I got fired up about it because we're like, we care about our clients. We want to do a good job. Now people are actually going to appreciate that we do this. So this is kind of fun and cool. So I totally agree with you that there's opportunity and you have to think, what opportunity does this present? And like you said, when you're true to yourself, how do I want to show up and how do I want to be most authentic? It really hits home. I had to, like, recently I had been kind of like, oh, I got to build a funnel. I need to automate this. I got to do this. And I was like very head down doing that, which is not who I am. Like, I love people. And I re-listened to one of my coaching calls because I'll check myself every once in a while. Like, okay, how am I doing? I was like, I'm talking so fast. Like, am I even listening to them? And I was like, okay, you need to slow down. Let's let go of this and let's focus on what you really love and you're really here to do. And so I would just encourage that, yes, there's opportunity when you think there is not, number one. And number two, always double check the job you're doing because sometimes the opportunity is just getting better at what you're doing and showing up different and in a more authentic way to your clients. Because, I know, here in the US right now, as we're recording this, it's election time, so it's a little bit crazy. And people want to be seen and heard, and people want connection. Like, we are desperate for connection and real relationships. And I'm sure something similar is going on in Canada because I know you have your
100%.
challenges as well.
We do. We'd like an election. I will tell you the interesting thing, and I honestly think it is the biggest advantage you have, and it's going to be for the next 20 years. And so everybody who's in that mid-30s, like, this is your season. In the world of AI, in the world of automation, in the world of digital, you have exactly what you need to be successful already. It's not outside you. It is who you are when you look in the mirror. It is your value system. It is your ability to slow down and to ask some very basic toddler-like questions, which is what a lot of my clients and I spend time with. And I said, you're not a mother. You're not a daughter. You're a person with your own identity. Who and what do you stand for? Where do you want to play? How do you want to play there? What do you need from a capability and capacity point of view? Because you get to write your story. And particularly for the women in my clients that are women, I'm very disruptive with the I'm doing this for my kids storyline. And I said, let's just take this extreme example, and I mean it from an extreme perspective. If you really are doing this for your kids, to be present for your kids, to put clothes on your kids, to put food on your family's table, you would make more damn offers. Nothing moves in your business without an offer. And instead, you are not doing the things that are required to grow a business. You're doing the things you want in your business, and you've got the order backwards. You must do what is required in order to have what you want. You don't get to do what you want if you're not doing what's required. And they're like, and it could be because of the election. They're like, nobody's moving any money. Everyone's uncertain. And I get the same phone calls from my parents because I manage all their wealth and just on top of the normal things I do. And I said, slow down a second here. Somebody who has a habit, whatever that is, probably not a healthy one, but if they have a habit that they cannot deny, it's amazing how they can always solve that problem. Your business, you have to get in love with the habits that create the outcomes. And if you don't know what the habits are, that is the simplest thing to solve. Because I always tell people that there's 3 reasons you don't have the business you want. All 3 are solvable. Good news. So solve them. Number 1, you don't know how to grow a business? Well, that is lazy. I'm sorry, you have a lazy problem. Because never more than ever was knowledge more readily available. You can listen to the podcasts, you can study in a book, you can take courses, you can do all kinds of things. You can go work with a mentor. You know how to do something. How is lazy to live with because it can be solved quickly.
Yeah.
If it's not working for you and something is, you had some proof of concept, the business is working to some degree, but it's not working to the level you want, to the profitability you want, to the volume that you want, you're smart and capable because you have some level of success. You can't see what to change. So don't avoid the problem and don't think that it's on you to solve the problem. You need a mentor. You need somebody who can come in with care, who has your best interest at heart to say, here's where it starts to fall apart. Or here's where you're going too fast to keep people going with you on the journey. And that's a solvable problem, so solve it. And when people say, I know what to do, I just don't do it. Like, I get distracted, my dog ate my homework, it was blah, 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 today's excuse, today's Halloween, therefore I can't make any business, whatever it is. You don't want it enough. And it is not anybody else's responsibility to want it for you. And honestly, if you get that in your inner circle, you are bucking the odds. You have to do it because you want to. And you have to be committed to doing it even when it's not convenient. And so I say to people, if you're waiting to build a business because you want what a business will provide you, but you're not willing to do what's required, go get a job. Because you'll have far more freedom, far more stability, and far more success in that path because you can show up and ask somebody else, tell me what to do today. And there is somebody likely who will answer, sure, do this. And I think my invitation to anybody is solve your problem. and know that each decision leads to another opportunity to learn, to grow, and to make another decision. And if you're thinking, I'm in the overwhelm and it just seems like I shouldn't get here and I'm all in this imposter syndrome, it's delayed decision making. I couldn't stay on the bathroom floor. I couldn't not answer when someone said, could you help me? I was compelled to do that. Solve it. What did I learn from it? I'm still not sending thank you cards, but for sure, to your comment, it was a gift. I wouldn't be where I am today if it hadn't detonated my life.
Yeah, and I think a key you talked about was delayed decisions. With all my clients, I love talking about personal core values because you should have your business core values, but I feel you should have your personal core values, especially we women, because you need to know what fills your cup, right? And I use it as my decision-making hack. Okay, let me check against my core values. Nope, violates one, not doing this, or hey, yeah, it supports them, cool, let's go. And then similarly in business, I use like the goals of the business. Should we be focused on this now? Well, let me see what our goals are, does it support, etc. And so I do think that we have to develop, I call them decision-making hacks, but whatever your tools are, like I like to help my clients do that because I feel like, yes, so much momentum and opportunity is lost in business by taking too long to make decisions. So, that's
it's a luxury
one thing I heard you
to
say.
think,
Yes.
yeah, it's a luxury to think that another opportunity is coming your way. And I run events, and you talked about that I had an event yesterday, and I have more events coming in the end before the end of the year. And I'm shocked. I mean, I have had so many people, and they do, because I've got a great network. People come to me saying, "I'm looking for clients. Who can you refer me? This is what I do. I've got capacity." And a lot of people come to me to look for support.
Yep.
And I've offered them opportunity to speak on my stage. I'm like, I'm going to fill a room full of buyers for you, and we're going to do that collaboratively. And they're like, I really need clients right now, but could I speak on your event in May next year? And my brain explodes. And I'm like,
why are you? Yeah.
You have your priorities out of whack. And interesting enough, I had that very direct conversation with somebody who I thought I knew where their business was at. I thought they'd be a great contributor in the marketing day, which we've had already. And they said, you know what, it's really hard. I've got 2 teammates that are on pregnancy leave right now. I really need new business, but I don't know if I really want new business. So could I do this in the new year? And I was like, I put out a social media post, it was directed to her. And I said, you are thinking that it's a luxury I will call again.
Yeah.
And I'm not arrogant about that. I just said, you will not be my first call. You might be a call 100%. But between now and May, I might meet another 100 people that I think are also awesome. And I might invite them first. So I was super proud of her because she spent all day in the meeting yesterday. She said, I need to learn more from you. I'm like, great decision.
Dean Graziosi's team called me like a week before, like, hey, we'd love to record you for a new product. Can we interview you? It's next week. It was like the day before my birthday. I wanted to go on vacation. I'm like, yep, I'll be there. Just tell me what time and which studio to be in. I'll figure the rest out, right? Yeah. And I mean, I can't tell you how many people have joined my groups or started following me, etc., because they saw me there. And I also wanted to do it to give back because the team had given me a lot. So I feel like where there's value. Oh yeah, if you were like, April, can you be up here in Canada next week and be on stage and be like, yep, I'll figure it out. I'll see you then. Thanks. and that's when I think you have to understand what the needle movers are in your business and what you should be doing, right? What's your unique ability? Like, obviously these people are the only person on their team that can be on that stage. So they need to prioritize that activity and making sure they're doing that. But I know we're short on time. My gosh, there's so many things I want to ask you about that came up. One thing you did say is like, ask a find a mentor or ask for help. And I do find, especially newer businesses hesitate. Success leaves clues. So here's an example. I have a client who has an 8-figure financial firm, like highly successful, is the face of the firm. It's election time. People get indecisive around this time. And he said, I know I can do this. He writes all the presentation stuff. I have so much going on. The business is so big. Could you please write a seminar for my advisors to give that addresses this time? And like, we have a shared concept. We don't believe in fear mongering, etc. So like, he felt comfortable. I did that and their numbers went back up, but he could have been too proud to say, oh, I write all the presentations. Like, well, I'm going to get us out of this problem. But successful people ask for help. Now they ask for help smartly to other people they trust and that are aligned. But I hear you, because a lot of my clients that have newer business, oh, I have to figure this out. Why? There are plenty of people that know how to do this. Like, let's ask around. Let's figure out if it's really something you need to do, or if, there's someone who could come in and like save the day pretty easily.
I heard yesterday this fabulous comment from my peer and collaborative partner, Katie, on my stage. And she said, I spent 12 years in the University of First Mistakes.
Yes.
I spent 12 years in my business before I made cash. 12 years in
Oh
her
my
business
gosh.
before she made cash. It is mind-boggling. And it's
Painful.
amazing how that landed in the room and who she is. And she said, truthfully, like, and an emerging entrepreneur does, it's like, I have this idea and I spend way too long in that I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out.
Yes.
I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out. And truthfully, that's cost you your business dreams. Versus the idea that you cannot be so afraid to spend money that you lose money. And
Yes.
you have to shift your thinking of, one, are you committed to being here? If you're committed to being here, what does the journey look like in your current I'll figure it out timeline? And can you stomach that?
Yeah.
Because you have enough tenacity, you will always get there. And that's what I knew about my business journey. I said, I know enough about business to know that I have the skill set, and to be fair, I have a huge leg up. 2 degrees, 25 years of business experience. I have a leg up for many that jump into entrepreneurship. I also always thought to myself, when I hired my first mentor, outside, actually, I've been through Dean Graziosi's world too. You will actually find me in their highlight reel as well.
Oh,
and
cool.
what's interesting, I said to my first coach outside of that, she said, you can't see the forest for the trees. You're a great marketer. You're great at sales, but you are not effective selling yourself. You're missing the moments and the opportunity. And if you stayed on this trajectory, I see it would take 5 years to get to where you want to go. And I thought that was a pretty accurate assumption. My expectations were about the same. She said, what will your family life look like 5 years at this speed? And I honestly thought
I
I'd
love
be
that
the
question.
hag in the children's novel, unrecognizable, really like a crone. And I thought, I'm way too young to be that. And I mean, don't get me wrong, 50, so it's like not like young. But I was like, I don't want to be the crone in the woods, isolated in a forest when there are trees all around me. And in that moment, I'm like, this is the stepping stone that accelerates me. This is the blind spot checker I have to listen to, because while I've got a lot of great knowledge, what I cannot see is the outside experience of me. And that is really important when you're selling services of any kind. And so I think mentorship is really important, because it is important, to your point, that someone is credible, someone is human, somebody can help you learn to think, not tell you what to do. Because you
Yes.
have to leave the experience, whatever that graduation path looks like, saying, I am more capable to solve this as a result of time together. And I always say to people hire me to help them find clients. Like, I know how to do that. That is my skill set. But I said, my biggest win isn't that you had multiple clients. I mean, yeah, I love every day when I get texts and messages and Voxers and WhatsApps and saying, I've closed and begin new stories with clients today. And here's what I created cash-wise in my business. Like, I love that. It's great energy. But the biggest win for me is watching people say, I can solve this. I can hear you in my head. I know what questions you're going to ask me, and I can move towards the decision quickly. And this is what I've decided. Or I'm deciding between these two things. What questions should I also be asking that can help me sway the jury in my own head? And I said, I'm not here to make the decision for you. I'm here to watch this. And when I love seeing clients go, I had this opportunity. I can solve this. I am now going to Nashville to go do something. I am going to get up at this hour of the day. And I said, if someone gives you a gift, take it and expand your capacity. And when you cannot expand your own capacity on your own, I pay big bucks for a mentor who's like, solve the capacity. What are we doing right now? What goes on? That comes, and it helps me just move more quickly. Because when your business is in a lift, which mine is, I said, capacity feels constraining. It's not. And in the one final story, I know we're running out of time, I had a death in my family over the summertime. And we got aging parents for just at that age. And so life very quickly changes. If you were running an event, you're like, I'm now running it in some other place, location. I've still got commitments and other things that are happening. But I left when we had put my family funeral service behind us in the rearview mirror. First call I made was to my coach and said, how do we run this multi-million-dollar business without me being so directly delivering
Yes.
to 10 to 15 clients?
Yeah.
How do we do this? And he's like, you are a rare leader, because most people will think not of that question. And I said, that's the next 18 months. We've got to get that answered. And that is the first thing I see on my vision board every day. How do we shift the business? How do we shift what we do? How do we build differently? How do we hire differently? And how do I show up differently so we can continue to be of service, knowing that the chances of me also going to support another family member is getting higher by the day. It's not a question of if. It is totally a question of when. And I will relocate my entire life to do that. And my business will still run. Because I love it. And it's part of who
I love
am,
that.
Right?
Yeah, it's so important. Like, what's the next iteration? And, you shared with me your greatest frustration now is capacity or obstacle. What a great problem to have, right? Like, first you have to stop and say, okay, I'm blessed to have this problem, which I know you live there. And then it's like, okay, how do we go to the next level? And again, that's when you have to say, okay, who do I have that can help me? Who's been to this level or who can guide me there, right? And a lot of times I see that, I'm working with someone who's like really the top of their industry, like in the environment. I'm like, you don't have any peers in the room. That's why you're frustrated and unhappy right now. You need to go sit in a room with people that are doing $100 million a year, even if they're not in your industry, right? Like you just need to be in that room to see how they're solving problems. And I know most people listening aren't running business at that level, but I mean, same at the beginning. One of my pet peeves is when people are like, oh, I can't really invest in coaching right now. Well, can you afford to not invest in coaching? Because as a coach or consultant, our job is to, compress the time to success. So you have to think, what's the cost of not investing in this? Because I love working with women who are still in corporate, kind of like you were, but who have made the decision to move out. And so they have the side hustle. They're doing 1 hour a day or they're doing Saturday morning. And I absolutely love that space. And the interesting thing is, I think because they've been in a structured environment, they appreciate having a coach or mentor because they're like, okay, someone needs to help me figure out what this looks like. But
and get there faster. Right?
Yes.
And that's the thing is you're paying for speed and you're paying for the mistakes you do not have to learn. Trust me, there'll be plenty other that you will discover on your own. And I always think the biggest way to exhale on the journey to creating business success is to know that you're holding somebody else's hand. And I think you're absolutely right. It is, you have to be in a room where success is talked about. When success is about solving the next problem and not staying in the rooms where disappointment, false expectations, and the sky is falling is the norm. I would eject myself out of that space really quickly because being in that energy, you should never be content to say I'm the smartest person in the room. You need to push yourself into rooms just like, I don't know how I got invited to this table, but I've got this wild idea. And they're like, that's a great idea. Do it in 30 days or less. And you're like, I was thinking next year. They're like, no. Changes your pattern of thinking, and it makes you more responsive.
No, it's funny. I would always apply to be in groups and masterminds that I was like on the cusp of qualifying for, but I didn't quite qualify. And I'd be like, okay, I'm going to figure out how to talk my way into this room. And like, it's absolutely life changing when you do that, right? And it works like every time when you're committed to. So I love that. Unfortunately, Christine, I know we're running short on time and I always like to honor your time as we're talking about. You're at a capacity strain now, so I don't want to add to that. Before we hop off, we didn't quite get at the Vixen Gathering. I do work with all female entrepreneurs and I really do help them focus on what they want and who they are. And we build a business around that. And I feel a big part of that, especially as women exit corporate, is stepping back into their feminine energy. We need a balance of our feminine and our masculine, right? But we really need to embrace. So I always like to ask all my first time guests, when do you feel really in that feminine energy or essence or your feminine power? Like, what activity are you doing when you feel that flowing?
I think it's truthfully when I really sit down person to person.
Yeah.
And it's as simple as energy exchange. It is simple as not needing to fill the space and not needing to edit and not needing to solve, but truthfully just having a very simple chat around a cup of coffee, chat around a glass of wine. I said, we need to remember our humanity. It doesn't need to be edited. And the moment you can start to say, you know, this is not just the polished version of me, this is the real hot mess of me, and give and receive at the equal space, I think that is where I feel really like human. And I want to get to the end of my life, like a life goal is I want to get to the end of my life feeling always it was vibrant. And vibrant because I connected to other people.
Yeah, I love that. And what color would your feminine energy, what color is it?
Fire. Red. It's red.
Red.
Fire.
I love it. Like your lipstick.
Yep.
I love it.
Bright, hot, always coming from a very fiery place, and also a place of love, right? It is unapologetic.
Yes, I love it.
Unapologetic. This is very certain.
So, Christine, as we wrap up, is there anything else you'd like to share with our audience, either a parting message or any offers that you have that are hot and fiery right now?
Well, to me, it's to take your shot today. I mean, that's the message I would live to you. You know, don't wait for someday. Don't put off to 2025 your vision. You can take a step today, and a step today is what will compound to the successes of tomorrow. And with that, I run a series of events. If what you've heard today is intriguing and it sparks your curiosity, then I would invite you to come and be in a space with me. I run a workshop series called Turn On Your Client Waterfall. This is about taking a recognition that a waterfall is an accumulation of a single droplet, lots of them, and they have the capacity to really shape, mold, and change the landscape. We're going to help you figure out how to take a single drop, a single connection, a single conversation, and build a business that is a repeatable client growth out of it. An engine, if you will. And so we've got 2 dates that are coming up towards the end of the year. November 20th will be the next, and it was going to be all about connection, connecting to people to get to the yes, to get movement and results created. And then we're going to cast you off on December 11th to what is the vision when we can do this repeatedly in a way that feels great, where we're delivering what we promised and holding to a high standard, because I want you to have a launch pad where the sky really is the limit and you are capable, confident, and saying, I want that, so that we can do it today.
Love it. Thank you so much for sharing. And if you are listening, you can get all of this information in our show notes. And also, if you have not done so, it's very simple. Subscribe to the Vixen Voice list. You can go to vixengathering.com/podcast and do that. And all of these amazing resources, like the links to Christine's events, will be delivered to your inbox. So very simple. If you haven't done that, go there and subscribe. And Christine, thank you so much. I knew this was going to be a powerful conversation when I met you this morning. I love it. I love that you're, really encouraging our audience to take their shot now. I mean, I work with a lot of women, and obviously the holidays are challenging when they have kids at home, they have family events, they're running a business, and they're trying to keep themselves afloat and take care of themselves. So I love that reminder to take your shot, because it's so easy this time of year. The weather gets colder. Maybe you want to be cozy and have slower moments. Just remember, there are weeks left to the year, and the seeds that you plant now will spring up in, come January. And if we're not doing that now, not only are you not getting clients now, but you're not going to have too much fun in January. So let's think ahead, take the shots you have, plant those seeds. And Christine, I know you had another tip. Share with us.
Well, and I would just tell you this. It takes on average 90 days to go from first contact to a yes. The holidays are the perfect time, yes, to be present with all of the things that make your holiday matter. It is also a perfect opportunity to just have a conversation with people in your network, plant those seeds, and invite commitment into the new year. I think so many business owners think that the business is 7 months of the year. I don't do in the summer and I don't do in December. And I'm telling you, I want you taking time out of your business at any time when your life is a priority. but I want a business to support you to do that, not to be that I'm not busy so I can.
Yes.
It shouldn't be an either or. I want you to build your and story.
No, I love that. I always say when people ask me, when's the slow time in your business? And I'm like, preferably never. That's my answer. I don't like slow seasons.
You don't quit.
Right. And like you said, you just leverage it so that you can go do what you need to do. But I love it. Thank you so much for this conversation today. And I really encourage everyone, go follow Christine, check out her events. Obviously, she gave us a fast, efficient, amazing advice today. So let's follow and support her and drink more of that in. For everyone listening, as I always say, the world needs more love. So how are you going to show up in love right now? I know we're going into the holidays, and that's a happy time for many people. Sometimes it's a traumatic time for you. It's a great time of year to focus on self-love and just being present with those around you. Let's just focus on having joyful conversations. If you had one joyful conversation every single day, your life becomes magical. So again, everyone, please remember, love yourself, love everyone around you. And Christine, thank you so much for this amazing conversation today.
Thank you.
Thanks again for listening to the podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to hit subscribe so future episodes are automatically downloaded directly to your device. And if you want access to today's show notes, including links to all the resources we mentioned, visit vixengathering.com/podcast. Thanks again for listening, and I'll catch you next week for another episode of The Vixen Voice.